All right. Right about now, we're going to talk about the revision, the constitutional revision, with 10 new rights that are going to be introduced through this recommendation, through this proposal. So, numerical inclusion, that's a new right that reinforces the access of the Senegalese citizen to all the sources of information. Of course, we are not talking about top secret information, but at least the information that the citizen needs. We know there are a lot of impediments when somebody tries to get some information. There are so many hurdles. So, with this proposal, that path is going to be made easy for the citizens to have access to a certain type of information. Uh, There's also another right that has been introduced through this law proposal, which is that the access will be made easy, not only for the availability of information, but also for the giving or the how do I put it, the provision, exactly, the provision of tools, of means that will make the citizens be more able, more capable to access to that information. So these are two different points. At first, there is this right that is constitutional for the person, for the citizen to have access to the information, but there is also the provision of different tools that are going to make that very easy for the citizen. So that's something very new in this law proposition. Also, in terms of electronic communication, there will be an increase in the access of the citizen to the essential services to telecommunication and internet. So the right to have access to that is going to be enhanced by the law, which makes it an obligation for the state to make sure that the Senegalese citizen has access to this information. There will also be a certain guarantee of the access, the universal access to internet, to the electronic communication, which is also introduced by this law. And this will extend to the whole territory of Senegal. So that's another new path, another new step that will be reached once this law proposal is accepted by the National Assembly. The third point is the right for a plural information, for a diversified information. Because sometimes the citizen has access to a certain type of information, but not to others. How do we make this a variety of information that the citizen can have access to? So there will be the reinforcement of the right of an information that is free, pluralistic, and independent. This also is being introduced through this law proposal. Another point is the warranty or the guarantee of a free access of the one who works in the profession of journalism, meaning the journalist will have more access, more feasibility, or more capability to have access to the information that sometimes is hidden from the journalist. All right, another point that is being introduced through this proposal of law is the right of a sound environment. How do we make sure that the Senegalese citizen is evolving in an environment that is sound, that is safe? So, a new recognition of the right of an environment that is sound will also be introduced through this proposal of law. The state also will be committed to protect that environment and to protect the national resources. So this is another important point that leads us closer to the sovereignty which we've been talking about: economic sovereignty, political sovereignty, monetary sovereignty, sovereignty in all aspects. Another point is the protection of the land, what we call in French le patrimoine foncier. We all know in Senegal how that has been an issue when a certain segment of the population is disallowed or prevented from having access to that land, that this provision is going to help the Senegalese to have access to that land, especially for women, because as we know, men have more access to land than women, and yet men are not more active economically. They are not more active when it comes to tilling the land, when it comes to growing, when it comes to practicing agriculture. So why does the man has more access to law, to land than the women? So this has to be taken care of, and it's being introduced through this constitutional revision. So we take that into account. So the state will have the obligation, and the communities also will have the obligation to protect that land which belongs to the Senegalese people. So the management, the durable management of that land will also be assured through this constitutional change or revision, if I can call it that way. In the same manner, the resources, the natural resources, which allow for the protection, the preservation of our sovereignty, Senegalese sovereignty, when it comes to natural resources, will also be guaranteed through this constitutional revolution. Or well, I can call it revolution, even though the technical term is revision, but it's a revolution. If you take into account all the changes, all the important steps that are being ushered in for a better Senegal, for a better citizen for Senegal. So this is extremely important. Now, in terms of investment, the transparency of the processes will also be ensured. And here I'm talking about the Assembly, the National Assembly, being obligatorily informed when it comes to the signing of conventions of investment. And here we are talking about major contracts, which now the state is obligated to take to the Assembly, to the National Assembly, for their approval before these big contracts can be signed. So we're talking about the reinforcement of transparency, of good governance through the introduction of this constitutional revision. Now, when it comes to the rights and the defense, the protection of whoever is being taken to court, that's another part, that's another aspect that is being introduced through this law. Le droit à la défense garantie. What does that mean? That when you have an issue to deal with the court, you have at least the protection that you should have when it comes to the presence of your lawyer. And if you don't have the means to have a lawyer, to get the state to allow you, or at least to allocate you, a lawyer that will also defend you. So we're talking about the state of law, and this is a very important point that will strengthen that. And now, when it comes to what we call the mariage forcé, that's the early marriage, as we know it, when the young woman is being married at a very early age. I'm talking about 10 years old, girls that are 12 years old, that are taken away from school and given to husbands, which means that their physical development will be impeded, their intelligence will be blocked somehow, and even in terms of health, they can have a lot of problems like fistula or other issues that may even prevent them from having children, you know, further down the line. So how do we protect our young girls from getting married too early? This new introduction, this new revision in the Constitution will also strengthen the prohibition of that practice, early marriage, in our country. And this will be in the law, in the Constitution. the protection of the rights and the dignity of the human being. So the last point, which is being introduced through the revision of this constitution, is what is called in French la fin du cumul ministre-maire. A member of government will no longer be able to be at the same time a minister and a mayor. Le cumul de postes, comme on le dit, sera aboli with this new constitutional revision. Ce qu'on appelle les cumuls de fonctions, which is important because we know how Senegal has a lot of talents, has a lot of capabilities, has a lot of expertise. Why do we concentrate so many titles around one single person when other people are here and that can take that post, that job, and do it very well? So this will be taken care of by this constitutional revision as well. And last but not least, um, the prevention of the conflict of interest, which is something that we see when there is a concentration of power. There's a lot of instances of conflict of interest. And when you prevent somebody from taking two different positions at the same time, you help prevent that conflict of interest, which also helps revamp or reinforce transparency and good governance. So that's what we wanted to talk to you about today. And I hope that this exchange will bring something new to your knowledge, your understanding of the direction which the country is leading right now. Senegal Chekanam, Jerry Global Village TV.